everybody, this is Kay. Thank you for joining me today here on my channel, Gigi's Paper Treasures. So this is part 3 of a series I've been doing, making journals out of the Reader's Digest condensed book covers. In the first 2 videos, I constructed the covers with the flexible spine, and in the second video, also in that first video, I put on the closures. And then in the second video, I did the decoration of the covers. And I think that's all, obviously, that I've done so far. In today's video, I am going to finish the insides. I've constructed something for the inside of both of the covers. And then I've also made a number of items specifically for these journals that I'm going to share with you. And I've also collected all the papers that I'm going to put into these journals. Now, I wanted to put at least 20 pages in each journal, and each journal is going to have 2 signatures. So I ended up with 21 pages per journal, which will be one signature of 10 pages and one signature of 11. So I'm going to share those pages with you today, and we're going to do some preliminary, what I call pre-binding work on the signature pages. That's things that you do to your pages before you bind them in. Just things that are impossible to do or very difficult to do after you bind in your pages, such as sewing, stenciling, any kind of like permanent stuff. Stamping sometimes is easier to do before you bind your signatures in. So we're going to work on all that today. The first thing I'm going to show you is the pages that I have chosen to put in my signatures. And I have them all kind of divvied up already into 5 stacks, which is 1 stack per journal. I do still have to separate them into 2 signatures per journal. But you can see I have 5 stacks here, and I'm not going to go through all 5 because they're all pretty similar. I'm just going to kind of go through one of them and show you what I've done, what I'm using. So this is kind of some heavy drawing paper. It's kind of a very light ivory color. And I've just got one of those. I've got 4 pieces of some coffee dyed paper. This is kind of some engineering graph paper, craft paper. This is some check and register paper. And I should probably say most of these papers, except for like the coffee dyed ones, which I did myself, are papers I've picked up from thrift stores, from yard sales. This was from a discarded journal that I picked up at, I think it was Goodwill, and it has some Bible verses on the bottom. So they were way too wide though, so I had to kind of alter them by cutting off a little bit and adding another little hinge piece on the spine. I've got one of these, which is kind of a vintagey type image from a magazine or a discarded book. This is kind of a paper bag that I made out of some packaging brown paper, and I decided to make it, kind of doubled so it would be like a page in a signature, but it has pockets. I think I might have to alter these though. I might have to trim them off here on the edge some. We'll see about that in a minute. This is kind of some, oh, I didn't realize I had that tucked in there. I guess I better leave it. I must have wanted it in there. So I took a book page, a couple of book pages, and just kind of embellished them with some other scraps and some stamping. Here I just added a little journaling spot. So it's kind of like a Franken page, I guess. If you know what that is, that's where you just put pieces together to make a page. I actually have a video on that, and I'll link that below if you're interested in looking at that. And I've got 2 of these type pages in each book, so I'll put 1 of these in each signature, and you can see I use some different colored stamps. I picked up a little kind of oddly shaped ledger book at a thrift store, and I've got 1 of those pages. I've got 2 of these in each. This was another discarded journal that I disassembled just to use the pages. This was a digital that I printed out of some scripty page, and I turned it into a signature by folding it in half and folding it up this way to make little pockets. And I'm probably going to add some sewing to these pages. These are pages that I made using hymnal pages and vellum. Well, I should say on some of them I used vellum that I stamped on, and on some of them, I'm going to pull one out of this next signature, I used some, this is transparent, overhead transparency paper that I printed on. And I was struggling with my printer to get it to take this paper. So I only managed to get 2 or 3 of them to actually work in my printer. And then I had to just give up because it kept getting jammed. And I switched over to vellum for the other couple of pages just because I wanted to make them similar. And then I just stamped on those with some, I think this is a sepia colored stamp. And then I've got a couple of plain pages. This is actually some ivory colored, like, resume paper I found at a thrift store. So that's basically what is in each of these 5 stacks, which I'll be dividing up into 2 per book for my signatures. For now, I'm going to set these aside, and I'm going to show you what I have made for the covers for these, for the inside of these covers. And I went to my scrapbook stash for this, and I picked out different scrapbook papers that I thought went with each one to use. And I made these kind of side tucks. I wanted, for the front cover, I wanted to have a side tuck to put in, you know, my note. I send a note with each of the journals that I sell, kind of explaining what a junk journal is. But I also wanted to cover this up where I added that button closure. So I made one of those for each of these journals with what I thought was nice coordinating scrapbook paper. And I have to figure out now which ones go to which journal cover. So that one goes there. This one, I think was this. Okay, I figured out which one was for which journal. I should have kept them inside so I wouldn't have to struggle with that, but I figured it out. Now for the back cover, I made in the same scrapbook paper for each one that I made the front tuck. I made one of these, well, I'm going to call it a shoelace piece of ephemera. I don't know if that works or not, but what I did here was I took the other half of the piece of paper that I cut for this, and I made one of these kind of folding elements, and I have a pocket in here made out of the same scrapbook paper. And what I'm going to do with this is take a piece of twine, and I'll grab that and show you, and kind of lace it up and tie a bow to kind of hold that closed. And that's what's going to go on the inside of the back cover. For this one, I'm going to use this gold and white baker's twine. I just think that'll look nice because I have the gold eyelets. I also have gold eyelets in this one, and that's it, just those 2. And then in these 2, I've got some kind of bronze eyelets. So I'm going to choose probably a different twine to tie that one up with. And then on this one, I have some light blue eyelets. So I'm not sure what color twine I'm going to use in that one yet. But basically what I'm going to do here is, let me rearrange this a little bit and get these other ones out of the way. So I'm going to start at the bottom here. Now you can start at the top and lace down, or you can start at the bottom and lace up. That's what I like to do because I'm going to tie a bow here at the top. And I kind of just prefer that look to it being tied in a bow at the bottom. So I'm going to take this side and lace it up. So as you can see, I'm going zigzaggy up, and I'm going to leave myself plenty of extra here at the top. But I am going to have to go ahead and cut this one, so I kind of want to estimate how much I'm going to need to do the same thing on this side and leave myself plenty extra to tie my bow with. So that's what that's going to look like. I just think these are so fun. They were fun to make, although a little bit hard on my hands setting all the eyelets, because I made, 5 of these, and each one has 10. So I did a lot of squeezing on the eyelet setter, and my hand got a little bit sore. One thing I did discover in the making of these is that when you undo this, it could be a little bit frustrating for the whole thing, if the whole thing just came falling out when you undid the strings. So what I've been doing, because I made a bunch of these before I made the ones for this video, for these journals, is I've been securing the string on one little spot here on the inside. So what I've done is I've got a scrap of the same scrapbook paper, and I'm going to trim it down just a tad thinner. And I'm going to use my art glitter glue and just glue this down over this string right here to hold it in place. And what that'll do is when these are opened, the string won't fall out, fall on the ground, possibly get lost. I just think I just thought that was a good idea, because I think it would get pretty aggravating to have that string come completely out every time. That's just my opinion. But I'm just going to put glue all over the back of this little strip and secure that down. Once that's done, I can lace it back up, and I'm going to add it to the journal here in a minute. One thing to keep in mind about this baker's twine is, especially this kind that has like the metallic kind of hair thin thread running through it, is it tends to want to unravel. So I've got my bow tied, and I'm going to make a little bit of a knot in each of these and then trim this down a little just to keep that from happening to the whole strand, because that would get frustrating when you're opening and closing this little shoelace element if it continues to kind of unravel like that. So I'm going to put a knot here. And just trim it off a 1/2 inch or so below the knot. I'm ready to glue both of these pockets down. I'm going to make sure I have my journal the right way. So obviously for the tuck spot on the front cover, I'm just going to glue 3 sides. I'm using my Fabri-Tac today. I forgot to explain earlier how I decorated these tucks for the inside of the front cover. So I kind of did that little trick where you take your glue stick and some book page and you glue it on there. You kind of just randomly swipe your glue stick around on there, and then you put your book page down, you let it dry real good, and you kind of peel it up, and it gives you these edges. And then I take my distress ink and kind of just grunge up the edges a little bit. I think I'll share that little technique with you real quick here in a minute. It's so easy and fun to do, and I think it just adds so much to, you know, whatever you're working on. So I did that first, and then I just put a piece of some crochet lace type trim, and then a label. These are some labels that I got from the Digital Collage Club. I think they're called French labels. And that's all. That's all I did for those little tuck spots. So, but before I do that demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and attach my little shoelace element on the back cover here. And I think I'm going to just do 3 sides so I have an additional tuck spot in the back to tuck something into. So for this one, I'm just going to put my glue here, here, and here. This is a tag that I cut out of that same scrapbook paper I was using for that journal. I tried to use up every piece of that, and I had this left over, so I was going to make a tag to include in this journal to coordinate with the other elements. And this is what I'm going to use to demonstrate that method I showed you that I did on that inside tuck spot. So basically you take your glue stick. I guess you could use another glue. I just think glue stick works best for this because you can put a nice flat even layer. And now I'm not going to cover the whole thing. I'm just going to do a little bit of a section here, kind of off to one side, and I'm going to put my glue on there like that. And then I'm going to take my book page, and I'm just going to place it on there. I kind of just want the text on there. So let me see, let me do this section right here. And I'm just going to kind of smooth that out on there. Now the key to make this work real good is to let that dry real good. If you try to peel it off right away, it's just going to all peel off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go place this under a heavy book and just let this dry real good for the rest of this video, and hopefully by the end of the video it'll be good and dry and I can peel this off and show you how that works. But I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to peel off all the book page that isn't actually adhered to the glue, and hopefully we'll have a nice little torn edge all around it, and we'll ink it up, and that'll be like the first element in decorating this tag. So this is how that turned out with the front tuck and the back shoelace element on the back cover. I am going to go ahead and do all the other four journals in the same manner using their coordinating scrapbook paper. I'm going to do that off camera so this doesn't turn into a forever long video, and then come back and show you what they each look like. I got all these done now. I'm just gonna run through and show you real quick. That's the first one. This one has that, and you can see I used different cord, just some kind of brown cord that I have here on that one. On this one, this is the same scrapbook paper. You can see it on the inside there. I used this side because the way I cut my paper, all my little critters would have been sideways, and I didn't want that. So that's that one. I did find some kind of medium blue cord to use on this one. And then last but not least, this one. So now I'm going to set those aside, and I'm going to get my piles of papers back out. This is just one of the piles, so I have to divide it up into two because I'm going to have 2 signatures per journal. So what I'm going to do is, like, some of them that I have 2 of the same papers, well, on the tea dyed paper or coffee dyed paper I have 4, so I'm going to put 2 in each of those piles, and then 1 each of these. And so on things that I only have 1 of, like this I only have 1 of, and this I only have 1 of, obviously I'll put 1 in each pile. And same with this, and maybe the paper bag, I'll put 1 of those in each pile. I've got 2 of these. And actually, I'm going to put that one there because that's a little bit thicker. It has that other piece in there. Let's see. I've got 1 each of these. I'll put 1 in there and 1 in there. And I only have 1 each of the rest of these. I lied. I have 2 of these. And then I did have the 1 extra, so it doesn't matter. One of the signatures is going to have 11, and one of the signatures is going to have 10 pieces. That's just the way it's going to be in these journals. So there I have that one divided up into signatures. So I'm going to kind of put them like this and set them off to the side. And I'm going to grab my next stack and do the same thing. And I'm going to do the same thing with all 5 of these stacks of pages. So that'll take me a couple of minutes, and I'll probably do a lot of that off camera and come back to show you what I've done. Okay, I got all my signatures separated into 2 stacks, and I even put these together in an order that I think I want them in my journals. I may end up, you know, switching a few things around, but I really wanted this pretty pocket page as the first page and the first signature in one of the journals. And then in this one, I chose just kind of a plain piece of lined journal paper. I did realize, though, that a couple of adjustments I'm going to have to make. I'm going to grab one of my covers here. Is that this page is a little bit too long, so I'm going to trim that down. And I was also looking at my little paper bag page that I made, and I'm going to have to do something about that too. So first of all, I'm going to grab my trimmer, and I'm going to take this first page here, and I'm just going to trim off about 1/4 of an inch at the top. I don't want to risk cutting off my Bible verse down there, so I'm just going to take this to my trimmer and kind of estimate. These pages are not all the same size, so I am not worried about getting it exactly right. So let me see if that did the trick. And this one, let me put that back in here. And I don't know if this is the cover I'm going to put these particular signatures into either. I just grabbed this one because it was at the top of my stack of covers. So yeah, so I'm good on my height now, but I have to do something about this. And I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull that out of there. I want to put something here to hold my spot so I don't forget where it went. I have a pair of pinking shears here that I use for paper. I have another pair that I use for fabric, but I think I'm just going to trim off, using my pinking shears, about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to line my little zigzag blade up so I don't have anything funky in the middle of this cut. I want it to be straight zigzag across like that. So let me see if I took off enough of that. And this is hanging out here. Okay, so yeah, it looks good. That's going to be good. So I'm going to go through and check the height on all of my other signatures on that particular page, and also trim all of my little handmade paper bags down with my pinking shears like I did on that one. Okay, so I made all those adjustments to those 2 items in each one of the journal signatures, and I've also gone ahead and chosen which signatures I want in each journal. So I'm just going to keep those in there to keep that, to keep that straight and not get them all mixed up. I do want to do a few more things to some of the pages, and that's going to include some sewing, some stenciling, and some stamping. And I think the first thing I want to do is some stenciling on these paper bags that I just trimmed down. And I think I want to use some gold paint, and I'm going to go pick out the stencils that I want to use and be right back and kind of get myself set up to do that here on my desk. I changed my mind about the color I want to put on here because when I went to my paint box, this caught my eye and it reminded me of how I love the way this color looks on brown paper. This is my thick body acrylic in pearlized wine red. I hope I have enough to do all 5 of these bags. If not, I'm gonna have to go get another tube of this. This is the Master's Touch brand from Hobby Lobby. And I wanna do both sides of my brown paper bag, but what I'm gonna have to do is one side at a time, let it dry, then turn it over and do the other side. So I just have a piece of my cereal bag plastic I'm gonna put in here like this. And I may even do something on the insides as well. I don't know. I might do something different on the insides. It's just these are kind of plain looking, so I wanted to do something, and then this caught my eye, and I was like, oh yes, I'm doing that instead of the gold on this particular item anyway. So I'm just going to open this up and put a little bit in my tray here. Yeah, it's running low. I've used it quite a bit in the past for doing this very thing, stenciling on brown paper. So I've got that there. Okay, I've got my little sponge dauber ready to go. And I've got my little ring of stencils here. So I'm just gonna kind of flip through here and pick out one and that I want to use on this first bag. I've got a bunch here. These all I got at, you guessed it, a thrift store. And you can see where I used that paint before. I'm just gonna, maybe I'll start with this one. This is kind of a, I don't know, a cobblestone type of pattern. I don't know if that's what you call it or not, but I'm just going to, undo my ring, pull that one stencil out for now, and set that aside. So I think in order to get it all over the whole side, it's just barely not wide enough to get it all over the whole thing, actually. So maybe what I'll do, since this will be sewn into the signature over here, I'll come more to the outer edge like this. Maybe I'll leave a little bit of a border here where there's no stenciling. And I'm just gonna kind of hold it in place. And I'm gonna dip my dauber in my paint, and I'm gonna scrape it off because I don't want a whole ton of paint. And I'm just gonna daub this around on this whole thing until I have the whole surface of my bag through the stencil that's showing through the stencil covered. If you don't like getting paint on your fingers, you might want to wear gloves if you do this project, but I don't mind it. I find that acrylic paint washes off pretty easily anyway, but I'm not really liking the way that looks there, so I'm going to, and I hope I get this right, I'm going to line my stencil back up as best I can, overlapping the previous pattern, and try and get try and get that that border.
This is easier said than done, I'm telling you. Okay.
Alright, that worked out okay. I mean, the paint is darker in some areas than it is in the others, but all in all, I think that looks pretty cool. I don't really mind this edge not having the stenciling on it. I'm probably going to go through here and just add a little bit of distress ink to some of my pages anyway, and that'll kind of maybe help kind of blend that all in, but I like the way that looks. So I'm going to set that one aside to dry, and I'm going to grab another one of those brown paper bag pages out of a different journal, and maybe even pick out a different stencil to do the next one with. I'm going to use this stencil for this next bag, and I'm going to kind of line it up so that these outer leaves just kind of circle around this edge here where the zigzaggy edge is, and stencil away. That looks pretty cool, I think. So you get the idea with the stenciling. I intend to do both sides of the bags and maybe even the inside, but I have to let one side dry at a time, so this is going to be quite time consuming. I've done a couple now on camera, and you get the idea of what I'm doing, so the rest of it I'm going to proceed to do off camera. Okay, I'm back. And it's actually hours later. I've been at this for literally hours. The stenciling just took so long because I have to wait for it to dry and flip it over. But I got them stenciled. This one I did just kind of a leafy swirly stencil on the front and a little BU stencil on the back, and then also I put a little lace pocket on the, instead of stenciling on the inside, I decided I was just going to do a couple different things. So each one I put a little lace pocket on the inside of this front part of this page, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do on the back, but I just wanted to show you all of these stenciled ones real quick. Okay, so there's that one. This one I think I did on camera with the kind of expanding leaf pattern, and then I did a kind of a simple flowery pattern on the back. And another thing that I did while I was waiting for paint to dry was I went through and I did some corner punching on this craft paper. I have this really cute little decorative corner punch, and I did that on all the craft paper sheets. And I also did a little bit more sewing on, let me see if I can find it. There's the little lace pocket on that one. On this page, this is was the Scripty digital page that I had folded up to make pockets, and I inked those edges, and I just sewed up this side and across and down. I didn't want to go across the bottom because I didn't want to take any of the pocket space away. These are already pretty, you know, I think they're 2 1/4, pretty narrow pockets down here, so I didn't want to take away any of that pocket space. So I did that in between while I was waiting for paint to dry. That's that one. This is another one I did with that leafy pattern, and this is the stencil I did on the back. Lace pocket. This is, I think, the first one that I did on camera with you, and then on the back I just did a simple flower. I had to find a different piece of lace for this pocket because I used up all the rest of that other lace, which was very satisfying. I find it very satisfying when I use something up. I don't know if you feel that way. On this one I did a simple flower on the front and the word sweet with some small flowers going across the top. And I just love the way this red wine pearlized red wine paint looks on the brown paper. I just love that sheen that it gives. And then the lace pocket on the inside there. So that's done as far as the stenciling goes. I wanted to show you, I'm not sure where I'm going to put these in the journals, but I made some other elements specifically for these journals, and I want to show you that real quick. So these are some CD envelope pockets, and I made kind of a, well, I'll just show you. First of all, I coffee dyed the CD envelope. I lined the inside with some embossed book page, and then I kind of brushed over it with my ink to bring out that embossing. And then I just folded this flap in and glued it down. So this is a pocket. And then on the outside I have some paper flower and fern leaf elements. And this has a little kind of paper clip with a little decoration ribbon on the top. And it opens up to another little pocket element here, in which I just made kind of a plain journal card to tuck into that pocket. These were made out of 12 by 12s that I just cut and folded into, I think, let me get my ruler. I made these 4.5 by 4.5, I think. Yeah, 4.5 by 4.5. So I could not get 3 even panels when I folded, so I had this left over, and that's why I decided to just glue that down and make it a pocket. That's the way those turned out. And I made 5 of these. They're all a little similar but different. They're all made the same way. They just have different book page, embossed book page in the background, and different, you know, scrapbook papers that I used to make the little pocket that goes inside the pocket. So that's those. I'm just showing you these so far. I don't know where I'm actually going to put them in the journals. These are some belly bands that I made, and I had a strip of that digital paper that is the scripty paper that I had to cut down a little because they were too big for the journal pages. So I took all of those strips, and then I also took some of my waxed book pages. That's what this second layer is here. I love that waxed book page because you can kind of see how the text and the images, you can see both sides through the paper, and I think that's a neat look. And I folded them over on the edge. This will glue down here and here on the page, so I have the full height of the belly band to tuck things into. And then this third layer is just some kind of gold ribbon. It frays very easily, so I decided to stitch across the top and bottom of these belly bands. And I might not be done with these. I might put some kind of a middle image or fussy cut or something in the middle of these yet, or I may just leave them plain. I'm not sure. But that's that. These are some collage strips that I've made recently. I copied somebody that I saw make a bunch of these. You know what? I think it was Meg at Meg Journals, and I have a bunch of them here, and they're way too tall for my journals to like use as a belly band, but I can cut them down too and use them for other things. What I'm thinking about possibly using these for are just edge decorations for a couple of my pages in the journals that are shorter than the other pages. So I made those. These were fun. I just took book page, tissue papers, you know, leftover scraps of different kinds, and glued them down. And then I took some white acrylic paint and made these markings. And then I took kind of a dark red marker and made those markings, those and these. And then I just took a black pen and did the dots. So those were super fun to make, and it's a great way to use up some scraps too. And I just used some of my brown paper packing as the background. So I made those. I have so much brown paper, so I try to use as much as I can whenever I do projects. These were some little strips I had left over, so I just made kind of these little faux envelopes. Letters they look like, but they just kind of fold down into extra journaling space. I don't know if I'm going to do anything more inside here or not. Sometimes what I've done when I've made these is I just pasted little pieces of lined papers in here to give, you know, distinctive writing spots. So I may or may not do something like those. And I just took some circle punches out of scraps and put them on the flat, like so. And then I made some other pockets out of scrapbook papers, die cuts. You can see this die cut in the background here, a vellum half pocket, and I like that torn and inked look of the vellum. And then I just put a little label on that one. And this is actually going to be kind of a double pocket because I'm going to glue it down on 3 sides, and then we'll have a pocket in the back and this pocket in the front. And that one just has a little number on top of a little label. This one is smaller and just kind of simpler with a bicycle die cut in the background. This one has some wildflower die cuts. Some more flower die cuts in the background on that one. And another one of those labels with numbers. I think I need to put something here on this one too. I mean, sometimes simple is is better, but I'm feeling like this one needs something down here on this pocket, so I may add something to that as well. So those are just some different elements that I've put together specifically for this this series of journals, so I just wanted to share those with you real quick. We've done a lot in our journals today. I think I'm going to end this video here just because I know it's getting pretty lengthy and I don't like to make really long videos, so I'm going to stop here. I'm going to have to do a part 4 and we're going to finish these up, I think, in that video by sewing in the signatures and doing the final embellishments, which will include, you know, putting things in the pockets and stuff like that. So I thank you so much for watching today. Please check back in a week or two for part 4 of this series of making journals out of Reader's Digest condensed book covers. I appreciate you watching and have a blessed day.